VFR Flyways, corridors, and transition routes will get asked on a private pilot check ride, so here's everything you need to know as a student pilot. And being able to explain the difference between those three things are really easy, and it should be done in like 5 words. But first, let me explain why these exist. So as you're approaching a Bravo, there's only a few different things you can do to get from one side to the other. The first is you can request ATC clearance. November 1, 2, 3, 4 cleared through the Bravo. You're on with ATC and they vector you through the entire way. If they're super busy, you might not get that clearance. So you just have to be prepared to be able to fly around it if they don't give you that clearance. Another way is to fly a published route without ATC clearance that goes either through or around the Bravo. Or you can use what's called a transition route that goes directly through the Bravo and you're on with ATC. So first we're going to start with a VFR Flyway, and that goes around a Bravo. You're going to see on the VFR terminal area chart. That's really important to know. A VFR terminal area chart, which is a more detailed look at the Bravo. So unlike a sectional, it's a little bit more detailed about the Bravo. And that's where you're going to find things like VFR Flyways, corridors, and transition routes. You're not going to find that on a sectional chart. So the Flyway goes around the Bravo, and it's going to look like these blue arrows that take you around a published route that goes around the Bravo, and you're going to see 3,000 and below, or an altitude that tells you where to fly this at. Oftentimes what's really cool about these, it's going to follow landmarks like rivers or highways or really prominent landmarks that you can see outside of the plane and navigate by. So with the VFR Flyway, you don't need ATC clearance. You could just go fly it, but just make sure to fly that published route and read about it before just going and flying it randomly. Another way to get through the Bravo without ATC clearance is a VFR corridor. And how I want you to think about this is a VFR corridor is like a piece of PVC pipe, or it's like a cylinder that goes directly through the Bravo. And you don't need ATC clearance to fly through there. It's just a cutout cylinder that goes directly through the Bravo. But what's really important is you have to fly the published route and the published altitudes. You have to stay within the boundaries, because if you go outside of those boundaries, well, then you're in the Bravo without ATC clearance. So the VFR corridors are kind of rare. You're going to find one in San Diego. It's going to look like these red dashed lines, and you're going to have to read about the route before you go fly. Just get familiar with it and stick to that published route. And the last way with ATC clearance, we could fly a transition route, which are red arrows that go through a Bravo, taking you from one side to another or transitioning through that Bravo. So before you fly that transition route, you have to request ATC clearance to be able to fly it. And you're just going to learn the name of whatever transition route that you're flying, and you're going to request that transition route with ATC. You're going to be on with ATC the entire time, and they're going to assign you an altitude and tell you to fly that published route. So the summary between all three of these, the Flyway, the corridor, and the transition route: the Flyway takes you around, no ATC clearance. The corridor takes you through, you don't need ATC clearance, and the transition route also takes you through, but now you're on with ATC clearance. The transition routes are a lot more popular. The VFR corridors aren't really, you're not going to find them everywhere. The most popular one is going to be in San Diego. And also, please don't forget that they're on the terminal area chart, the TAC. So if your DPE says, where can you find a VFR Flyway? It's the terminal area chart. If you want a free resource that tells you everything that you need to study in the right order of how to study it, that makes the most sense, that's going to be the first link in bio. It's called the Private Pilot Study Roadmap.